What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 22 of the Chat It Up podcast. As always, I'm your host, Shooter. Hope you guys all had a great weekend. I know I did. Was down in Appleton all weekend long. For you loyal listeners to the podcast, my good friend Brandon Urkula, he had me down there for the weekend. He and his wife Katie had asked me to be the godfather for their son Oliver. So we were down there for his baptism. So it was a pretty awesome weekend down there. So shout out to my new godson, Oliver Paul. It was pretty, like I said, it was a pretty awesome weekend all around. Little housekeeping starting off the podcast here. If you're a first-time listener, Chat It Up is a bi-weekly podcast about all things Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And for all of you loyal listeners, as always, welcome back. Thanks for sticking in here with me. We got a great episode this week. We'll start things off here. We're going to do Eat It Up. We haven't done that one in a while, so I'm going to do a little food segment here. Followed up with some Yooper news, and then we'll get into this day in Yooper history. So let's just jump right into things here. So for Eat It Up this week, we actually, for Eat It Up, I'm taking it outside of the UP. I'm taking it down to Appleton at a place that we ate at on Saturday called the Home Burger Bar. Now, the Home Burger Bar is totally a hole-in-the-wall. It's a tiny little place. It's right on College Avenue in Appleton, which, if you've never been to Appleton before, College Avenue, there's a ton of bars and restaurants that kind of run up and down the main drag there. So it's a really, really fun street in Appleton. And the Home Burger Bar kind of prides itself on being kind of a dive bar, but they've got really, really great burgers and some interesting burgers. So the burger that I had was called a Badger. And it had on it, what they do is they smush down cheese curds and put that on the cheeseburger, and they put ranch on top of it, and it's on a pretzel bun. It was phenomenal. My girlfriend Patty, she had a burger called the Luther, which I believe is a shout out to, I believe it's a show Bob's Burgers, I think actually is where it comes from. I could be wrong on that reference, but anyways, it's a basically a bacon cheeseburger, but instead of being on a bun, it's on a glazed donut. So she had the Luther and says that it is absolutely amazing as well. So I would definitely give this place 4.5 out of 5 stars. The only reason they lose a half a star, I would say, is they, at least this time when we were there, they went a little bit light on the fries that came with the burger. I'd like a little bit more French fries to go with it. But all in all, awesome place, one of my favorite places in Appleton. So any Yoopers out there listening, if you're ever down that way and you venture down College Avenue, stop in to the Home Burger Bar and have a bite to eat. You won't be disappointed. Okay, other than that, it's time to jump into Yooper news. My one piece of Yooper news for this week is the big storm that we had this past week on April 11th. The interesting thing about this storm, I mean, you know, in the UP we typically usually get a pretty good winter storm, or I should say a spring storm actually, because now winter's pretty much over. But right around that April 11th date, we're kind of on a 2-year cycle of getting storms every 2 years, which is super interesting. And the reason why I know that is kind of by total coincidence of talking back and forth on social media with Bugsy Sailor, which, again, you loyal listeners to the podcast, Bugsy was my first interview. And I had put a post out there about the April 11th storm this past week, and Bugsy was able to document from his photos that we got hit with a storm on April 11th in 2017, and we also got hit with a storm on April 10th in 2015. And then back in my Facebook memories, I was able to document that we got hit with a winter storm on April 11th of 2013. So I just think it's kind of neat that we can document that literally every 2 years, right very close to that April 11th date, we keep getting hit with a snowstorm. If any of you listening out there can verify if we got hit with one in maybe 2011 or 2009 somehow, you know, if you have it in your Facebook memories or photos or something like that, drop me a line on the Chat It Up Facebook page. I'd be curious to know just how far back this 2-year cycle goes with the weather. So like I said, if you have any sort of documentation on that, maybe drop me a line. All right. Otherwise, it is time for This Day in Yooper History. And again, that's brought to you from the good folks over at pasty.com. That's pasty.com. And they also run the Pasty Central Facebook page. So here it is, April 15th, This Day in Yooper History.
Pasty Central Day in History, April 15th. In the early morning hours of this day in 1912, Agnes Davies and her 9-year-old son clung to life, shivering in the darkness of the North Atlantic. They were on their way from Cornwall to Mohawk, Michigan, with many others from the Copper Country and the Upper Peninsula, passengers on the Titanic, which struck an iceberg just before midnight. Having witnessed the tragedy and the loss of her 19-year-old son with over 1,500 other passengers, Mrs. Davies and her younger child would be rescued and eventually make their way by train from New York to the UP. Weeks later, at the Calumet Theater, she would give an eyewitness report of the events of that spring morning in 1912. Pasty Central Day in History, April 15th.
Okay, thanks again to the folks over at pasty.com and the Pasty Central Facebook page for This Day in Yooper History. All right, it is time for the interview for this week's episode. And this week I interviewed none other than my wonderful, brilliant, amazingly talented sister, Mrs. Tara Hartman. I've actually wanted to get Tara on to the podcast for a while. Obviously, she's known me my entire life, so we have a lot of history there, and she's always just so passionate about whatever she does. You know, whether it was, you know, her basketball career up through high school and college, or her job, or cheering on the Michigan State Spartans, or the running that she does in her free time, or being a mother. Everything that she does, she puts 150% into. And that passion always leads to great stories, great stuff, great content. So I'll quit blabbing and I'll just kind of jump right into things here. So without further ado, let's chat it up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with my sister, which it's kind of fitting that I'm sitting here talking with her because today is Siblings Day. So, Tara, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Happy National Siblings Day.
Thank you. So, okay, so you and I are 4 years apart. So you were born on tax day. Although is it not tax day anymore? Didn't the day get moved, or is it still April 15th?
It's the 15th. It's just if it falls on a weekend, then they...
Okay.
Bump it to the next business day.
Okay, so you're 4 years older than me, so you were born in 1981. I guess my first question for you is, what do you remember most about us kind of like growing up?
Well, I remember when Mom's water broke with you. We were just talking about this story when we were in Florida, actually.
Okay.
Which is strange because I was only 4 at the time, but it's very vivid. Memories. I remember you coming home from the hospital. I don't remember much of you being little.
But you remember dropping me and breaking
I remember breaking your arm.
Breaking my arm.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, that and you falling down the steps and knocking your teeth out.
Well, that was the other thing. I was going to see if you were old enough to remember that. So
I do. I remember. I didn't see it happen, but I just remember being scared and knowing that something was going on, and
Sure.
I went to Auntie Carol's, I think, actually, is where Mom and Dad brought me while you were
and
at
it was
the
the middle of
hospital.
the night, right? Like it.
Not when it happened, but
Okay.
by the time they were able to get people
Sure.
there to help deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah, so the backstory is I was only like 1-ish. I fell down a flight of stairs.
Not a flight. You were just crawling up a few of them and then fell down.
Well, how do I know? I was 1. But anyways, I had some lacerations to my mouth or some trauma, so they had to find a dentist that could see me kind of at nighttime, and I wouldn't sit still. I wouldn't, I was obviously crying and screaming and making a fuss, and they tried to put me in a straitjacket, the smallest one that they had, and I was able to wiggle out of it because it was too big for me. But so I guess that's like, I'm just like Houdini. I can get out of straitjackets.
Yeah, and then the arm story. You were, I do remember kind of this. So it was at our old house on Hemlock Street, and you were crawling over to to the VCR, and you actually like went to stick your hand in where the tape goes, and Mom was like, grab him, and I went over to grab you, and I fell. I don't know if I was fully standing. I think I was on my knees, but I like fell backwards. I was holding you, and you hit your arm off the floor.
Gotcha.
Or on some, I don't know if there was a toy there or whatever, but yeah. Sorry about that one. I was trying to help.
So when I think of like our growing up, the other thing that I, for whatever reason, I think about, or when I was kind of knew that I was talking with you and I was starting to think about our childhood, the first thing that popped into my head for some reason was Amadon School, which is, it's apartments now, but...
Yeah, that's weird when we went to Debbie's.
Yeah, when we would go to Debbie's, our babysitters, and Amadon School was right next door, and for whatever reason, I like associate that with our childhood. Even the Westwood School was still there when, when you were a kid before going to Woodland. I think you did go to Westwood, right?
Yeah, so I went to Roosevelt for kindergarten, and then Mom and Dad built their house now when I was in first grade. So I went to Westwood for first and second, and then Woodland was built. My third grade year was the first year that. So yeah, for sure, Westwood was the bomb. Mrs. Demers and Mrs. Hudson for second grade. The other. So it's funny that you say Amadon, because I was thinking about Debbie's house and being babysat there and playing pickle in their yard and
absolutely
making forts in their bushes. Lots of different memories of their house for sure.
The other thing that really stuck out to me was playing basketball when we had the hoop on Oak Street.
Oh yeah.
That was like another vivid memory that I had, which basketball kind of be a theme here as you and I continue to talk, but yeah, when we had that hoop that we had to have like weights and stuff on to hold it up.
Yeah, I think Mr. Leman gave it to us. It used to be theirs. And then he gave it to us and we put it in the road. Or not in the road. We played in the road, but cutting off fingertips of gloves in the winter, like the stretchy gloves to go out and play. Oh, yeah.
I just remember you showing no mercy on me and whooping my ass.
Hey, I needed somebody to play against.
Right? Well, as I had kind of alluded to, obviously basketball is kind of like a main theme even up through high school because you were a very good athlete. And I was a statistician, so I feel like a lot of through your high school years, the time we spent together was on like buses and like going to different schools and stuff, right?
Yeah, for sure. That was one of the memories I had written down too was and ironically, it was through Facebook that a memory popped up, or I was looking at a message with Miss Cav, and we had been chatting, and she said something to the effect of remembering when you and I would stay after school. Even I could drive at the time. I know it was my junior or senior year, but if we had a home game, we would just stay after, and you'd rebound for me. I don't know how I would shoot that much on a game day, but lots.
I was going to say I remember rebounding for you.
Yeah.
And you yelling at me to pass it to your hands because, I'd get lazy and I wouldn't give you a good pass.
Pass me into a shot.
Yeah, pass you into a shot, that type of stuff. But yeah, shout out to Miss Cav for sure because that was one of the other things that I had down too was because she was really kind of who asked me to be a statistician and started doing that.
Which I used to be a statistician back in the day.
Okay.
For our boys' I was a manager when I was in 6th grade. Mr. LeDuc was the coach. That was when Carrie Nora and that whole crew played. Sure. Which was like awesome for me at that age. And then in high school, I was a statistician with Kelly for our boys program. Mr. Millala mostly, and then we moved up with varsity. But yeah, so that's runs in the fam too.
Yeah, I suppose. So obviously not only were you a standout athlete, but you were also a standout academically. I mean, Kingsford doesn't have a true valedictorian, so to speak, but I mean, if they had one, I mean, you would have been it. So, you finish high school, or I should say you graduate, and then there's really kind of a big decision to be made for you that would looking back, it's a really big decision that kind of steers your life because St. Norbert's College down in Green Bay wanted you to come and play basketball, correct?
Yeah, and actually it's funny, we were talking with Virginia, just winning the national championship, Tony Bennett.
Yep.
His sister used to coach at UW Oshkosh.
Okay.
And they recruited me pretty heavily as well.
Sure.
It was one time I got grounded because I was 5 minutes late getting home. And she called. And in that 5 minutes when I was supposed to be home.
Oh, when you were supposed to be home? Okay.
Yeah. Big trouble for that.
I don't remember a whole lot about
Well, you were young. You were in like 7th grade.
I was going to say, I'm in like middle school. So that...
And who remembers middle school? Let's just be honest. We all want to try to forget it.
Well, and it's just kind of an awkward time anyways. And I mean, not that high school's a walk in the park either, but not that you and I weren't close, but we also weren't like buddy-buddy either. Because I mean, we're
far enough apart.
There's a far enough apart age gap that you had your own life. I kind of had my own thing going on. So it's kind of interesting to hear some of this stuff from you because a lot of it I don't really recall or remember.
Yeah, so I'd never visited Oshkosh, but they were definitely in the conversation. St. Norbert's, and then Northern. Those were the three I applied. I applied at St. Norbert. I applied at Northern. I applied at Tech. I applied at State. Mm-hmm. No, I didn't say U of M because I knew I did not want to go there. And if I went for strictly academics, I would have gone to State. But I wasn't ready to be done with basketball, just given how my high school career ended with my hand.
I was going to say, I have down here your broken hand, and I didn't know.
Oh, yeah, no, totally. But that had a lot. I felt like I had unfinished business maybe a little bit. I wasn't quite ready to be done. We had a great senior season. We were set to tie the school record for most wins. Ended up not having that happen. We lost the last game of the year, and the whole full moon story.
Well, tell it. That's what we're here for.
Okay,
yeah,
so it's Friday the 13th. Actually, it was Thursday the 12th of November, and we went to Gladstone. And at that point, we were set to win the GNC. We had split with Marquette. And all we had to do was beat Gladstone, who we beat we were up by 30 in the first half when we played them at home.
I believe you put up 31 points in that first game that you played them at home, because at one point that was like the most points in a game for a girls basketball player. I do remember. I don't know
if it was 30. I think it was 29.
For some reason, the number 31 sticks out in my head because
you were the statistician. You should know.
Well, the reason why that number sticks out to me and why I always remembered it is because my birthday is July 31st. So that number is always. So maybe I'm wrong, but I swear you had put up 31 against them, and at the time that was for a single game, anyways.
Yeah, it could be. I just remember we handled them easily and should have been able to handle them even without me. We were a solid team. I was not the only player by far. We had
you guys had a ton of great players.
For sure. So, so during the JV game on Thursday, lightning strikes, the lights go out in the gym. Mm-hmm. So we wait, ultimately decide to cancel the varsity game, reschedule it for the next day, Friday the 13th. So I just remember our bus driver not knowing where to go, and the streets in Gladstone are all numbered, and he turned down the wrong street on the way to the gym, and it was 13th Street. Because I pay attention to stuff like that when I'm riding the bus on the way to a game. Or 13th Ave, whatever.
Yeah.
So, and I was not superstitious prior to this, but I pay attention a little bit more now.
Yeah.
I think it might have been a full moon too, but don't quote me on that. Anyway, first half, I get a rebound on a free throw, take it down to the other end, go in for a layup, and the defender hit really hard off of their leg and like right back into my hand. And I'd never broken a bone before. I mean, it hurt like crazy, but I just remember getting up, and the ref went to I always inbounded the ball. The ref went to hand me the ball, and my hand was like I couldn't even hold on to it. So I had to go out. Mom in the bleachers is like, suck it up, you're fine. Dad couldn't be there.
Right.
Because he had practice for a playoff game the next day.
Right.
And I think it was Miss Cav, actually, who came over and was looking at it. And somebody else's mom was there that was a nurse. And they, like, waved Mom over, like, no, it's not good. So went to the ER in Esky. I don't know.
Yeah, St. Francis.
Yeah. And determined it was broken.
Sure.
Splint me up. They didn't cast me there. We had to do that the next day. But I just remember getting back to the gym and seeing the tail end of it. And we ended up getting beat, which was like, ah.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, I'm now extremely superstitious. Triskaidekaphobia is fear of Friday the 13th, for anybody that doesn't know that. But on that note, I did get engaged. We got engaged on a Friday the 13th. So.
Yes. So, so to your point, you felt like then you had some unfinished business as far as your basketball.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure that I wanted to be done, I guess. It ended abruptly for me. Not that we would have made a huge, deep tournament run, but I didn't get a senior night. Oh, no, I did. I take that back. But we hosted districts that year. I just remember feeling like I could do this. And I thought I was dead set on Northern, which is obviously where I ended up playing. But I remember going down to St. Norbert and getting the Royal Tour, and I cried the whole way home because it was beautiful, and it really was a gut check, like, oh, am I making the right choice? But ultimately decided to stick with Northern. St. Norbert gave me whatever scholarship they can as a private school, but it still would have been, I'd be paying off loans right now, where Northern, I didn't have to.
Well, because with Northern, it was a full academic scholarship, right?
No, actually, crazy enough, they I don't know what they give their valedictorians now, but it was a measly $1,500, I think.
Oh, okay.
So not free.
Not free, but
much more
affordable
for mom and dad, and both are equally close to home. But I like the idea of walking on at Division II, and Carla with a K hooked me up with a conversation with Coach Geary, and put in a good word, and I don't regret going there in any way, even though I didn't play 4 years. I didn't even get out of my redshirt year, but it was still a great experience.
I just remember that decision being like a big deal. Like one of the only times I can ever remember like a heated argument like ever. Not that, we don't snap at each other and have disagreements and stuff like all families do, but I just very clearly remember it being a very heated discussion with you and Mom and Dad, and trying to kind of like.
I think they kind of wanted me to go to St. Norbert, actually.
I know for sure Dad did.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, hindsight's 20/20 at this point. But it's just kind of interesting how you look back on decisions and where they go. And so you mentioned, you walk on at Northern, which you didn't even get through your red shirt, essentially, right?
Right. I tore my meniscus and had some other damage, cartilage and scar tissue. So I had knee surgery I think it was around Thanksgiving time. I want to say it was that Thanksgiving weekend.
It was like a break time for you.
Yep. And they ended up having to do more work when they went in there, and they did a lateral release where they sever your patellar tendon, clean it up, and then reattach it. So what was a scope procedure turned into a lot longer.
Sure.
Rehab took a lot longer, and it was tough. Kind of made me, it took basketball from being something that was fun to being, it's always going to be a job at the next level, but it was a job and then the rehab job.
Right.
And I started to hate it.
I was going to say, what I remember about that time frame for you was even almost kind of before you hurt your knee was all the work that goes into it. you're driving up to Marquette for open gyms
Yep.
before the school year started.
Yeah.
To get
Which
to
was
that
fun,
point.
actually.
Right,
Shoop and I, she
but-
took me up under her wing, and we'd
Yeah.
drive back and forth. And
But then it's like, okay, on the holidays, you got to be back up there early.
Yep.
You got to put in that work, and you're
Yep.
not somebody that would ever half-ass anything. So when you're giving it 150% on that stuff, and you realize, like, this is
oh yeah, for sure.
a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
And I loved my teammates, and I loved the program, but I knew I already had a hurdle coming in as a walk-in, and then my knee on top of it. And I value our family time
right.
more. So it
Sure.
was like that was a tough decision at the end of that
course.
season. I struggled big time, not wanting to let other people down, but I knew, like you said, I can't go about anything halfway.
Right.
So,
Do you think, though, on the flip side of it, looking at the silver lining, do you think that at that point where you couldn't play, but you were kind of still involved as basically like not a grad assistant, but essentially a student assistant, do you feel like the silver lining of that was that then kind of inspired your passion for coaching?
Oh, 100%. I still have my binder in the basement of all of our plays from that year. But I was at every practice my freshman year, my sophomore year. Junior year, it depended on my classes and right, so I wasn't going to skip class to go to practice, but anyone that I could be at, I was at. I was on the bench for all home games, essentially. I didn't travel. Got to go to the GLIAC tournament one year. That was really fun. And we made a deep run into the Elite Eight, actually, one year, which was super, super cool. Or maybe Sweet 16 to get to the Elite Eight. I forget. We were in Northern Kentucky, but yeah, for sure helped pave the way with coaching. I was tried to be a voice on the bench, tried to help our guards see the floor, see the things that the coaches maybe weren't paying as much attention to,
right,
on the detail side of things. So that's priceless knowledge and experience that you can't take away. So
absolutely. And while all of this is going on, you're also getting a degree, you know. So so you ended up getting your degree in secondary math, correct?
Yep, secondary math ed with a biology minor.
Okay. So I hate math. I'm the opposite of you, which is kind of funny. But what is it about math that you love so much? I think I know what you're going to answer, so I'm curious to see what you're going to say. But what is it that...
I didn't know that I loved math until I taught math, to be honest. I knew I liked math a lot. I knew I was good at math. Part of it was, here's a problem. Here's the way to solve it. Step, 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 check. Got it right. It's clean. It can be perfect in a way, right? I now don't want that to be that way for students, but at the time, that's, I think, what drew me to it. And I just remember not knowing what, I had people say, you want to be a teacher? You want to be really? Like from the time I was little, I always said I wanted to be a teacher. And I remember my teachers in high school saying, how about a doctor? How about a lawyer? How about this? How about that? Or, you're a 4.0, come on. And I remember thinking, if I go to be a teacher for high school math, is that a way to use my talents, I guess, and still be a challenging career, because not everybody can go on to be a high school math teacher. I remember thinking that, like, okay, then maybe they won't bug me so much about this teacher thing if it's math.
Yeah.
But I think, like I said, there's always a right answer. Or you can get to a right answer, and it's black and white. And it's not about me being right. It's about when you're done, like, I did that, I got that, and having that solution be correct is, to whatever the problem is, was very gratifying as a student, as a learner.
I put down that you're a rules person.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally.
And so math, the majority of math is like rules. So it's like, if you follow these rules,
yeah, you're going to get there.
Everything, like you said, everything's going to be perfect and it's going to make sense because you followed those rules.
Yeah.
So I literally wrote down rules person.
Yeah.
Because that's you to a T.
That is accurate.
So I feel like when you went off to college, you and I got a lot closer. Maybe, and I don't know if it's as you get older, obviously the age difference matters less.
Oh, for sure.
But obviously when I was in high school and then you're in college, and I think I had come up to visit you for a basketball camp, you know, in the summer, that type of thing. So I feel like that's more where we kind of like, not bridge the gap, but you and I kind of started to get closer was when you got to college. I don't know if you felt the same way, but that was kind of my observation that I had down.
Oh, for
here.
sure.
But then when you finished school, so you ended up, you student taught at Iron Mountain, correct? You were able to student teach. Who did you student teach with?
I student taught, I had a split assignment, so I student taught 7th grade with the Harvey Johnson and Renee Yake at the high school level.
Okay.
And actually I started out being initially just placed with Renee, and then we worked it out to get some middle school thrown in.
Sure.
Which was really, actually, it was perfect on my end. I got to, that class that I had as 7th graders, I ended up getting to have them again as juniors and seniors, which was really cool. They still are my favorite class to this day. But yeah, so that was in the fall of 2003. Forgot to mention the silver lining in Northern is that's where I met Chris.
That too. That's speaking of silver linings, that's
Right.
another one. And you know, we talked about how one decision really is kind of like a fork in the road in your life.
Absolutely.
If you think of everything that's come from that decision to go to Northern, that's another one right there. So
100%. So he already was living in Iron Mountain, teaching at Iron Mountain at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was looking for where to choose my student teaching placement, we couldn't student teach in your home district at that point. So Iron Mountain was my initial choice, which was funny. A lot of my friends were like, you're going to go where? Being the diehard flivver that I was in high school.
Well, and the rivalry was a lot different than it is these days where
yeah.
everybody's friends with everybody. Because back then, you didn't cross Westwood.
No, Woodward.
Woodward, excuse me, not Westwood. Yeah, you didn't cross Woodward Avenue. Yeah, for sure.
But no, it was, again, one of those choices where you don't realize the impact that's going to have. So I student taught in the fall. And at that point, they were in a position to restructure their schedule for their secondary staff. And they essentially took one class from each of 3 teachers that were overloaded at the time, and they created a half-time position second semester. And so we were talking about interviews yesterday with our senior mock interview event that we just had.
Yeah.
And I said I would have really valued from an experience like this because I never had an interview. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, well, when I student taught at Iron Mountain, they just created a position for second semester, and Denny Chartier came and said, hey, do you want the job? And I'm like, yeah, of course, I'll take it. It was halftime at the time, but coming right out of graduation was perfect. So I finished out that year halftime. I had one more year halftime after that, and then for the most part was full-time for the next 9.5 or 9 years. Yeah. And I wouldn't trade that experience for the world. Some of my best friends to this day are my Mountaineer coworkers, and got to teach a lot of neat things and coach a lot of great kids. And
we have to take a minute to give Bucky another shout out. The true state champion Mountaineers.
Don't get me started.
I won't. Otherwise, I'll have to put the
my basketball heart's too broken to dredge that back
I'll have
up.
to put the explicit notice on the on the podcast for all the swears that would probably be coming out. But what would you say you liked most about your time spent teaching? And you were actually, the other thing too is during those 9 years is you coached basketball throughout that time too. So I mean, I guess what would you say was your biggest takeaway from that time, or what do you appreciate most about that time?
Oh, the kids for sure. Like at the time, I remember them, the good, the bad, either way, you don't realize it when you're in the trenches of teaching that
Sure.
they fill your bucket one way or another. They give you feedback whether you know it or not. Now that I don't work directly with students, I realize how much that's really why you're in it, and what makes it such a rewarding profession, a fun profession. Is it stressful? Yes. Is it even probably more stressful now than when I was there? Yes. But I have a lot of good memories of the kids that I coached.
Sure.
Also the ones that I taught, but just those relationships that you form is really invaluable.
Why do you think it's more stressful now, or would be more stressful now? Do you think it's like the social media age adds a lot to it, or what? I mean, what do you...
That's a part of it, I think, from a public perception of teaching and their ability to bash, if you will.
Sure.
From the work side of it, I think it's we have so many technological avenues to get things done that it's expected that we do all of it all the time.
Sure.
Then you throw in high stakes testing, you throw in educator evaluation, you throw in all things political, and
Sure.
people just want to keep their jobs and they
Right.
want to do their job and do it well. And there's so many things being thrown at them where they feel like they can't just focus on their kids
Right.
and what's really important to them. So,
Right, and at the end of the day, it is the kids. I mean,
Right.
I only taught for 2 years, and everything you're saying about once you're removed from that and you realize how much you enjoy working with kids,
Yeah.
it's the number one thing. People ask me all the time about, would you ever get back into teaching, or, do you miss it? And I'm like, I miss working with kids.
yes.
Number one thing. All the other stuff, is like that, not even close to. It's just that's the number one part of it that you certainly miss the most.
For sure.
So you're still kind of working with kids in a roundabout way through what you're doing with the ISD, or the Dickinson-Iron Intermediate School District, if I can get that whole mouthful out of the way, and then I
Yes.
can just say ISD the rest of the time, or the DIISD. How did that kind of transition happen for you?
So in my 10 years at Iron Mountain, I think I was pink slipped 6 of the 10, right? So
A teacher pink slipped? Never.
well, it doesn't happen that much these days because we've already pared back so much
Yeah.
that now we're in a critical shortage time. But
Back
at that,
in my day.
right. But truly, I mean, if you look at the staff, that the number of employees that Iron Mountain had when I started to where they're at now, and it's not just there, but declining enrollments happening all over our area.
Yeah.
And anyway, that year it was the 2012-13 school year. I thought I was going to be good. Mr. Tass had retired, so I was like, okay, there's only a couple math teachers left. I think I'm going to be safe. And
Sure.
I ended up being cut back to part-time or half-time for the upcoming school year.
Yeah.
And the ISD had an opening for Math Science Center Director and Curriculum Coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest, I had no idea what that really even meant. I just saw math and full-time.
And science. I
Oh,
mean,
right,
you're...
right. And I thought, oh, okay, I'll apply. What the heck? I've got nothing to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And I was scared. I had never had an interview. Truly, that was my first interview at age 32.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very unnerving time, I guess is the best way to describe it. I was comfortable in the district I was in. Like I said, I love my colleagues. I love my students. I didn't really want to walk away from teaching at that point, but I felt like I had to do what was best for our family.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing the writing on the wall that if they didn't need me full time then, they're probably not going to down the road, and I couldn't take that risk. So
Sure.
And at that point, there's not openings in our area. So when something like that comes up,
Right.
you have to give it a shot. And I remember going to my interview, and I ran up to the Beacon House golf outing with fellow Flowers. I had to miss the golf outing because of my interview, and I got up there and got a call for a second interview the next day.
Sure.
No, I take that back. That wasn't when the second interview was. It was after my second interview that I went up and got called to come back. They wanted to talk to me just to make sure I understood kind of the lay of the land with what the job would entail. And when they offered it to me, I was honestly shocked. I thought when they were calling me back, they wanted to just be like, thank you.
Right.
We really, maybe down the road, get some more experience, maybe look into administration, whatever, and then, come back. But yeah, I'm in my 6th year there now. The job has totally evolved since I started. Every year has been different, which is both fun and extremely challenging.
Yeah. So what really goes into, because your job title is really kind of a mouthful. You're the math science curriculum coordinator. Is that?
Well, that's what it was when I started.
Okay.
And the math science piece of it is not formal anymore.
Sure.
This is our first year where I'm not a math science center director.
Okay.
The state of Michigan changed their funding and restructured what was a really awesome network, actually. One of the best networks. I'm a part of a lot of different networks now, and that Math Science Center network was my tribe. They're good people. They're the most selfless group.
Yeah.
They got a lot of stuff done in the state for 33 years. No, there were 33 centers. 20 years, roughly. And anyway, that's no longer my official title. I'm still trying to do the work that was charged of that role, but
Sure.
I'm now just our general ed director is the best way to describe it. I cover all things curriculum, assessment, instruction. We don't have a lot of consultants in our ISD. We're one of the smallest in the state.
Sure.
So math, science, social studies, ELA, I'm, I guess, required to know a lot about all of those things. Unfortunately, the stuff that we mentioned earlier that are stressing teachers out around evaluation and high stakes testing, that falls under my umbrella as well.
Okay. So you're really kind of, in a way, you're almost going back into these schools to work with educators?
Correct.
Essentially?
Yep. I don't have direct student contact very much at all. I work a lot with principals.
Okay.
And teachers.
Okay.
To try to help them, to help make their job easier. They don't maybe view it that way. It's a tricky role in that I'm no one's boss, essentially, other than my awesome literacy coaches. But our work with our locals is really to try to help them through all things curriculum related.
So, although I know you aren't completely directly related or I shouldn't say involved with some of the stuff going on at the ISD, but you guys have been doing a lot of kind of cool stuff in schools with kids as far as doing stuff with STEM. I saw wasn't there just recently a STEM night at one of the schools, I think?
Yes. So if I back up a minute to the Math Science Center work that I was talking about, we had a really big grant that's we're still seeing the effects of today, even though the formal funding structure is not there. It was called UP Smile.
Okay.
All of the 5 Math Science Centers in the UP worked together to write for a grant.
Okay.
And it was close to $1 million.
Wow.
And it was very integrated. That was the purpose of it, which STEM is intended to be. It's not just science and then technology and then engineering and then math. It's true integration. So we had roughly 100 teachers UP-wide trained in our next generation science standards, which are now the Michigan science standards. Each teacher built their own 3D printer and then they learned how to use that in their classroom.
Very cool.
Provided them with a lot of GIS, GPS technology and vernier equipment, and also the training for how to use that with students. Then we had a literacy kind of integration day with how to help teachers help their students with writing about STEM fields. So that was kind of the launching point for the work that's still going on today.
Sure.
The state really recognized the work that went into that UP grant and then used that to continue projects that were going on. So right now we're seeing that in our work with math recovery.
Okay, what's that?
Math recovery is a K-5-ish. You don't have to put those parameters on it, but
right.
Essentially an elementary math assessment platform that gives teachers the tools to talk to their kids about math and see where they're at, what level they're at, and then determine...
Kind of like Dibbles for reading used to be, or...
No.
No?
No. Well, maybe a little bit.
Okay.
I could see where you would connect that. It is. We train teachers how to use assessments and the tools that come with it to then determine where they need to meet that kid instruction-wise.
Sure.
There's no paper. There's no pencil.
Okay.
It's truly just a sit down and talk to me about your understanding about math. If
Okay.
I would have just put that out there for the layperson.
Yeah.
One of the most powerful projects I've ever been a part of. I believe in it wholeheartedly. I'm super excited about it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I love the focus or spotlight that you're putting on the math, science, technology, all of that kind of rolled into one, because there's been such a lack of it, and at the same time there's been this kind of increased focus in the trades, as there should be, because we need carpenters, and we need all these different types of jobs that go into that. And what a lot of these students, I think, probably don't realize is that just because you can work with your hands, there's other skills that you're going to need on the job. Math and science and technology, all of that combines into that.
For sure. CTE people will tell you that they're the original STEM. That
They
were STEM
really
before
are.
They are,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah,
and it's funny having... Again, I still wear my teacher hat more often than not, and the legislators that are screaming for why aren't our students, able to do these things? It's like, well, we were preparing kids through Michigan Merit because you said every kid had to go to college. We were just doing what was told of us 10 years ago, so that's why we got everybody through Algebra 2, and you made us cut consumer math and applied math and all of those courses because that's how the legislation was written at the time. We didn't have a choice. And now we're seeing the effects of that 10 years later, essentially, where we need the pendulum swinging back the other way a little
now they're
bit.
all going, why aren't there more kids into the trades?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's interesting looking at it from my perspective. I do think, I think if I look at so we have new standards in math, new standards in science, literacy as well, and if you merge all of them together, the biggest Venn diagram right in the middle is problem solving, troubleshooting, persevering. It's more like the soft skills that it's not just the content, and I think that's where we're trying to get teachers to work with students, and it changes how they teach, really. It's not lecture and sage on the stage. You've got to give up some of that control and put the work in the students' laps to get them to be real world thinkers.
In the talking that you've done with the teachers and the principals that you do kind of on a daily basis, and this would just be anecdotal evidence anyways, I'm guessing, but through these different programs and things that you have related to that, has there been any sort of feedback you've gotten where there's been an increase of females in participating or going down kind of that math and science route, which is traditionally not necessarily like a heavily female populated?
Yeah, so I don't know that we've seen the effects of our efforts yet. Especially because we've been focusing a lot at the elementary level, so you won't know until they graduate or indicate a career choice. But another program that really emphasizes not just girls, but diversity in general.
Sure.
Is code.org.
Okay.
Really a cool opportunity for Michigan. We've got new computer science standards that are recently adopted. And with that, code.org is it's nationwide, but it's a free curriculum for schools to use. So we've been able to train high school, middle school, and elementary teachers. Not all of them, but there's different components for each grade band. And code.org really prides itself on making computer science accessible to all students.
So is it like teaching kids to code essentially then?
It is, but not the coding that you'd think that we,
Sure.
right? Like I had one computer science class in college and that was my lowest grade of my career.
Oh, okay. See, and I had a ton. It was way different for me. I was exposed to a bunch of it.
Yeah. I mean, I got to the point where I taught it for my high school students, but that it was just kind of coming about at that point, and it was the old language, all of that. There was nothing so different from what it is today. Yeah. But yeah, so code.org to me would be the one that really coding in general tries to promote that with females, as well as other demographics that may not feel like it's something that they should or could do. So that's been really cool.
I feel like you'd be a good example for schools and stuff to use. Like, here's a cool job you can have that's math or science based. If you have real world examples out there, because I think probably in a lot of situations there's a lack of here's something you can actually do with math and science that's attainable.
Right. Besides just teaching it.
Besides just teaching, exactly. Or saying you could be an astronaut someday, besides shooting for the moon or just saying being a teacher.
Right.
It's here's a real world example where you can do some cool stuff with math and science.
Oh, absolutely. And there's more out there than you realize. It's just, I think in our area we limit to what we know.
Sure.
And so it's getting career exposure to kids as well, which is another big focus for my work right now, or schools in general, is to expose kids to different careers at a young age, not waiting until they get to 7th or 8th grade or even high school, so that they have a better sense of what they want to be when they grow up.
Right.
Although I'm not grown up yet, I don't know if that.
Would you say that kind of side of it is the most difficult part about what you've been doing, or what would you say is really kind of the biggest challenge that you face with doing what you do every day?
I think professionally the biggest challenge is there's just always, it's a moving target. I feel like a lot of my work is now dictated by the state. Intermediate is just that, right? Intermediate school district, we take what the state says should be done or needs to be done, and we are that bridge between them and our local districts. And it's no secret the state of Michigan's kind of a hot mess as far as education is concerned right now. They're restructuring their own department, and then it's just trying to keep all those plates spinning and keep up with all of their changes, and then deciding, how do I prioritize, what do my schools really need to know? Because I don't want to overwhelm principals any more than they already are. Right. So what can I try to focus on and help them with, and not over communicate stuff that's going to change in a month anyway. Sure. Personally, the challenging part is that lack of kid contact that we talked about. Yesterday was a great day. We had all of our seniors at Bay College going through mock interviews, and I got to be around kids and see a small fraction of my work impacting students. There's a lot of days where I don't see that or feel that, and my work feels like it could be, I don't want to say meaningless, but I don't see the effects of my work, which is personally hard to get fired up about at times. But I work with a lot of great people, and that is what I have to keep focusing on and hope that somehow I'm helping someone somewhere.
No, I'm sure that you are. Is there anything else that you wanted to add about, or that I didn't touch on that you wanted to talk about? I mean, I've kind of checked off all of my boxes here, so
I honestly, I don't think so. Everything that I had kind of jotted down, I think we've talked about. if you had asked me when you were talking about that pivotal point when you make that decision, where do I want to go to school? What do I want to do? I don't think I would have seen myself where I'm at today.
Right.
I'm super grateful for where I'm at and everything that I have, but I don't think I said, I want to be a curriculum director when I grow up.
No, but...
So it still feels kind of surreal, even though I'm pushing 40, man. Maybe that's why I don't feel grown up yet. I don't know that I'm... maybe that's just how life goes, but...
Well, I thank you for coming on the podcast, because I think that you have an interesting story, and I think that the work that you're doing is interesting and it's noble, and even though obviously you're not like with kids on a daily basis, you're still making a difference. And
thank you.
Yeah, and this is this episode will be coming out on your birthday, so I guess I can say happy birthday too at the same time.
Thank you.
So I guess I know you listen to the podcast, so you know what my last question is how do you like your pasty?
With butter and ketchup.
Butter and ketchup.
Yes.
Okay. Combo.
Yes. And Antonio's are the best pasties, hands down.
Okay. Antonio's here in town. They do have very, very good pasties. So I think I can agree with you on that.
Oh,
so
yes, they're so good.
All right. Well, Tara, thank you for coming on the podcast again. This has been great.
Thanks for having me. Cheese love you.
Cheese love you.
Go green.
Go white. Okay, it's time for the takeaways from this episode. The first one is the importance of family, friends, and the people around you. Typically, these are the people that you rely on most, and that's who you go to in times of need. And really, these are the people that probably play the largest role in whether you succeed or not. So, with that being said, don't be afraid to take a look around you and make sure that you have the right people in your corner, which is obviously easier said than done. Thankfully, I'm 150% certain that I do have the right people in my corner, and for that, I consider myself very lucky. Which leads to my next takeaway, which is gratitude. From being able to sit down and talking with my sister for almost an hour this week, to then becoming godfather to my friend's son over the weekend, I'm just feeling very grateful in this moment. And sometimes there doesn't need to be a big lesson or moral to the story. Sometimes it's just okay to stop and be thankful for what you have around you. I feel like when you realize your blessings, it only leads to more blessings. So don't be afraid to stop and smell the roses and appreciate the good things and the good people in your life. Lastly, I just want to say happy birthday again to my sister Tara. She's always had my back, and she's always been one of my biggest supporters in anything that I do. So cheese love you, T. I hope that you have a birthday that's as amazing as you are. Chat It Up is a bi-weekly podcast about all things Upper Peninsula of Michigan. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe, rate, and leave me a review. You can also find Chat It Up on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you for listening in. I'm your host, Shooter, reminding you to keep your chin up and your eyes forward.